guys, welcome. I think we all know each other. If not, please take a look at your program. You can read all their bios because I don't want to spend time with that. I want to get right into it and ask them some difficult questions, but good questions that I certainly know doctors want to hear. All right, so let's start with Andrew. Okay, Andrew, CEO of Beauty Health. Last year was the best year I ever had. My numbers were great. We're all heroes. I know that you, Beauty Health, I think you doubled your sales. You showed great returns and earnings. What happens if another crisis hits, another COVID virus, some sort of worldwide catastrophe? How do you manage and how do you prepare for that sort of downturn?
Well, thanks, Stephen, and good morning, everyone. It's great to be here. Whilst I've been in beauty and wellness for 25 years, I'm just 2 months into my role here at Beauty Health, and that's really top of mind. That question, clearly when there's a complete lockdown, Beauty Health with our flagship brand, HydraFacial, really suffered, but like you referenced earlier, Steve, post-COVID, the team at Beauty Health with HydraFacial doubled the business, and it continues very strongly. And I think it talks to a lot of the trends which you spoke to earlier. We're seeing a younger consumer, a more diverse consumer, a male consumer coming into the brand. They're looking for a service which is non-invasive, it doesn't hurt, it works, and it makes you feel good. And I think we've been able to measure that it gives consumers a boost of confidence. And I think post-COVID, more and more consumers are looking for that. And we sit at that great territory between non-invasive medical aesthetics, wellness and self-care, and traditional over-the-counter beauty, which is growing both here in the US and globally. So
do you think your price point has a factor in that? Is it like that it's maybe less than some of these medical procedures that brings them in?
Yeah, I mean, we're a very democratic service. The base HydraFacial starts from $150, but by adding various boosters and serums, personalizing to your skin type, you can walk out spending $600 to $800. So we really cater for everyone, and that's really what we stand for. We're an and company, not just targeting any one consumer, but a range of price points and channels. We're in practitioner spas. We're a great traffic driver in doctors and physician surgeries. We're in non-medical spas, and more growing in omni-channel in retail and department stores.
So reaching the consumer is more difficult than ever. There's so much noise today. It's hard to break through the noise. And Michael, I'm going to touch on what you're providing with Engage Technologies, and you're able to send text messages to get messages out to my consumer. Tell me a little bit about that, and how do you reach my consumer versus those that are already out there that are maybe considering aesthetic treatments?
Sure. Well, what you described was a fantastic presentation, but you're describing an extremely tech-savvy audience. And so often when they come into healthcare, we go back 5 or 10 years. And so what we really believe is trusted knowledge, when it's delivered from a source they have a relationship with, really empowers. And so when we look at the comprehensive patient experience, you have to figure out how do you engage those patients in 3 big categories: before they come into your practice with pre-education. Secondly, when they're in front of you and they present with a diagnosis, how do you take them on a knowledge journey right then? And then how do you nurture them after they leave the practice? And so what we found is the biggest mass consumer behavioral shifts when you look at customer experience and customer journeys are really kind of 3 things. Mobile first, this amazing addiction to short form video, and third is this channel preference we all have, which is text. So we all love text. It has the promise of brevity, and it also really is in that part of our lives that's protected. It's not the chaos of email. And so we've come up with a methodology that kind of eliminates the friction so you can engage them before they arrive, because really you have such operational deficiencies because of knowledge gaps. Because really, if you think about
how do you prevent becoming a nuisance? My emails I delete about a quarter of, probably 3/4 of them nowadays. How do you prevent that from happening with yours?
Yeah, that's a very important question, because we believe that the only time you should engage with a patient is if there are 2 things that are happening: height of interest, time of need. So if you're delivering content right when they need it, that's valuable, that's frictionless, that's also extremely easy to consume, which is mobile and short form video. People love videos, but they don't want them to be long. They want them to be very brief. But complexity is a real enemy to brevity. And so we figured out a way to share a content story in a sequence of short videos over the ability to deliver it on mobile. But we finally figured out how to do it because of the infrastructure that's available now, without an app, without an email, without passwords. So that's really the trigger.
So one of the interesting things that with your technology, I know you send out videos to my patients and it hopefully educates them. They become a better consumer. They come in, they save my time because they're a more educated consumer and they understand this. But content is king, and content is so difficult to create. Everyone always thinks that's the easy part, but it's actually the hardest part, in my opinion, is the creative insights. Now, Voin, I know that you guys have Friend Media, and you have in my office. In fact, we use Friend Media, and it's been incredibly successful for us. And that you have people can see different types of ads, or they can see my content in all the video screens in the office. But tell me, how do you come up with content? If I'm a savvy marketer, at least I like to think of myself that way. We have a team, we come up with our content. But for the average practice out there, how do they create content and put it up on Friend Media?
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Dayan. And first off, thanks to the hosts and all my panelists. So appreciate you guys having me up here today. So you were talking about content, and for anyone that doesn't know Friend Media, just to give you some background, we're a Fire Stick that you plug into any TV in a waiting room, into an office, and it allows us to broadcast exclusive content to that TV. We can also tell if the TV's on. We can make sure that it's all cached, so in case there's a Wi-Fi outage, we're going to stay current, and we're also cloud-based, so everything is real-time, so we can update content real-time. And that's really our business, is to make sure we have content on the screens. We currently aren't in the business of making content, but what we do think is we can influence content with the industry. So for physicians that work with Friend Media, there's really two paths you can have. One is you can either broadcast any of the content you currently have, or you can go into a library of content that we've got from all the manufacturers and industry in the space. And it's interesting, if you actually look at what happened with content over time, you look and make a comparison like the music space. Before Spotify came, there was musicians were being paid differently. And now if you look at it with Spotify, musicians are being paid if a user listens to the first 30 seconds of the song. And so now when you listen to music, you're basically listening to different music than 10 years ago because they're trying to get the jingle or the chorus right in the first 30 seconds. So you can either thank them or blame them for something like that, depending on how you feel about current music.
So when I first started adopting Friend Media in my office, it was a relationship I had with the company, and I had to pay a monthly fee. I understand now that you're partnering with corporate, with I think Allergan, because I know we just did a promotion with you guys for Alley Points, and it worked really well in my office. Tell me a little bit about how that has changed Friend Media working with the corporation instead of individually with the physicians.
Yeah, and so spot on. We worked with Hydrofacial in the past. We're working with a number of different brands, BTL, Cutera, with Cool Sculpting and the Alley team. And basically we partner with these brands, and what we're doing first off is we're capturing data through QR codes, through surveys in the practice, to serve back data to the brands and let them know first off what content is working. And what we're finding is short form videos, like Michael described, are being received better. Quick call to action, that's always being received better. Whereas in the past, we had this content that was running 10 or 20 minutes long. And by working with these manufacturers, like we said, we can partner with them to make sure that, like I said, the practice is going to do better because they've got great content coming from the manufacturers, and we give the data back to the manufacturers.
So as a physician, do I have to pay for your services now, or is it automatically in my office?
Yeah, sorry. So we have two channels now. Physicians can either pay for it themselves, or they can actually pick from a list of manufacturers or brands that are willing to pay for it to be in there.
So you give the brands basically commercial space in my office to advertise.
Yeah.
And then in theory, my patients would see that, and I don't have to go educate them on neurotoxins or fillers or whatever you have up there. They would already come in being an educated consumer.
Yeah, and just to give an example, since we're on the panel together, when we were partnering with Hydrofacial just prior to the COVID pandemic, we put Friend Media into 250 practices, and Hydrofacial did an independent study and looked at the impact versus 250 practices without Friend Media. And we were able to see that they had an 83% lift in practices with Friend Media. So by showing that to the manufacturers, a lot of the brands have now started partnering with us and making it free for them.
So, it brings up a really interesting point. Our patient database is incredibly valuable. I have a demographic of over 30,000 patients now. They're all high-end consumers. So we started doing something where we started putting art in our offices. We have art students putting their art up, and we're selling it, for them if they want to sell it, and we celebrate the local artists. But I think what you're taking advantage of, or what you're recognizing and appreciating, is the value to my consumer. Now you're giving them space in my office, and you're a much better marketer than I am. But they still have to make the decision, and they got to be a buyer. And Scott, I want to jump into here with patient 5 because, financing has always been an issue. And For those people who understand cars, they know that if 70% of consumers who walk into a car dealership are going to buy within a week, and if you get them to stay in the car dealership, they're going to buy. Once they walk out the door, they may go somewhere else. Same thing kind of with my practice. When someone's in the office, I want them to sign right there and then, and sometimes financing becomes an issue. If we have to go check and we have to get their financing cleared, and we'll call them back next week, we lose them. PatientFi gives us immediate access to approvals. And you're also now working, I believe, with corporate involvement too. Is that right? You have a deal with Allergan, I think?
Correct. Yeah, so one of my favorite slides in your presentation was where it said natural results, no pain, no downtime, and free of charge. So what we recognize is that cost still is the #1 barrier to accessing and affording aesthetic treatments. And this is what PatientFi is trying to do and address proactively with medical practices, specifically within medical aesthetics. In partnership with Allergan, which we just recently announced the partnership and expanding our relationship with them across all of their brands and products, is together trying to make these procedures and treatments feel more affordable. And that is starting with marketing these procedures now on a monthly budget plan. Along those same lines, from our friends at Allergan, we learned that about 83% of all patients are desiring an aesthetic treatment, but their #1 barrier or struggle is affording it and price. And so here at PatientFi, we've developed a platform that's truly innovative, where the practice now can proactively, at the time of presenting the price quote, bring up a budget plan and discuss financing, similar to what your experience of in a car dealership, where it's an $80,000 Mercedes or it's $599 a lease payment. And, in the state of California, 72% of all consumers lease their vehicle, right? So it's pretty, easy connection to say, why aren't more patients accessing these products, coming to this market? Again, it's addressing costs, and that's what we're trying to do at PatientFi. And one of the things that we do is very unique, is we provide a no hard check experience ever. The #1 reason why people don't apply for financing, or when the coordinator may present financing, is that your initial reaction is to say no because you don't want to hurt your credit score. In fact, with PatientFi, we never conduct a hard inquiry on the credit profile ever. And at the same time, we deliver an immediate approval, and we believe that we're delivering the highest approvals with the most competitive rates in the market.
So one of the things we're liking about PatientFi is that we sell a year of neurotoxin, and they pay up front, and they don't
Correct.
have any fees. So that's one of the big advantages that we've used in my practice. I want to go on to a question. I think we're running short on time, but I want to get another question if that's okay, Grant. Michael, I know you guys just did a big round of funding, and you were really popular getting these messages out to the ophthalmology and dental communities. Aesthetics, in my mind, has always been a different world. And so many companies have come into aesthetics, J&J, Almirall, Valiant, and you see a lot of them struggle in the aesthetic world. Why?
Well, I think aesthetics has a tremendous amount of knowledge gaps across that patient continuum. And I think when you think about any injectable, any device, any procedure, all comes along with a story. And that story has to be extremely well told. And to be able to do that for a patient, and the real key, we believe, is the doctor is the relationship to the patient. And so everything we do is we build beautiful, universal content featuring some of the top key opinion leaders who help us design it in our arc of engagements. But we wrap it in the brand of the practice. So
Getting the aesthetic physician involved as you grow this is important to your brand moving forward in the aesthetic world.
Correct, because that relationship is between provider and patient. And so all the education we make is wrapped in the brand of that provider. We don't put a brand anywhere on it, so it looks like the doctor invented it. But we also work with industry so they can have their beautifully told stories put right into our libraries, along with universal content, so the doctor is always the quarterback in choosing how they educate that patient.
Okay, we're running short on time, but Andrew, I want to get another question to you. Who's your target? Who's your consumer? I see you have DTC ads. I see you're in Sephora. You're coming to my practice. Who's your customer?
In short, Steve, I mean, all of the above. I think it's the sum of all the parts. It starts, of course, with the consumer receiving a great experience, word of mouth, and then the estheticians become really our greatest advocates and traffic drivers. They're for really ensuring that the whole ecosystem with providers, consumers, estheticians win, and that's why at Hydrofacial we spend so much investing in training education of the estheticians. They're often not trained or receive as much attention as other people in the surgery or in the spa. And really that's our secret sauce, and that's what really drives this wheel of influence and advocacy.
Voin, how do you break habits? In my office, we have Friend Media, and we try to get my staff to get patients excited about it. We had barcodes on there. Struggled a little bit until we kept going back and forth with our staff. Eventually, we got them excited about it. We did a little Starbucks gift card giveaway, and then all of a sudden, we did 50 scans in like 20 days. We had our alley numbers went through the roof. Can you help me break habits with the office? Because I put new social media devices in there, and the office just walks right past it.
Yeah, well, I think first off, staff doesn't want to have to solicit to patients, and I think we know that. I think that, but the younger consumer that's coming into practices today, they're coming in, they are thirsty for knowledge, they want to know more about aesthetics, and I think with a solution like Friend Media, you make it very easy for staff to educate patients without the staff having to solicit, and I think that's the thing that we're trying to make easier for the industry. At the end of the day, there's always a conversation around trying to target the direct-to-consumer at home, but there's 15 million patients in practices this year that we can target moments before they see the provider, and we can make it very easy by getting those patients to ask questions instead of the staff to have to solicit the patients. So I think that we can solve what you're referring to, which is introducing new treatments to patients without having to make the staff do the work.
Okay, and lastly, Scott, I want to follow up with you as we finish this. More and more young patients come into my office. My average patient now is in their 30s because I have a young, I'm old now, I guess I'm senior. I don't know when that happens. Eventually you become senior. But my average patient now is dropping significantly because I have a young staff of PAs and nurse practitioners, this young physician I brought on. Is that your target? Are you going to help me get those patients to finance to see, and will you be able to get them approved?
We will, and the great, if I could share, is 60% of your millennials, so from age 18 to what we'll call 34, that's kind of the millennial target, we'll say, 60% of them are actively pursuing buy now, pay later options for paying for different products in their life. With that said, last year we had a great partnership with Allergan where we were the financing partner for their Natrel breast inline. And a age demographic for surgery like breast augmentation, what we saw is the practices that had the Natrel breast implant in partnership with the Patient Fi program had a 56% increase in their implant sales versus the practices that did not offer the Patient Fi and really what we'll call an affordable breast augmentation monthly payment plan option to their patients. All of these staff were trained as to how to present this monthly payment plan at the time of the price quote. So instead of $8,000, they were presented a $199 payment plan. And what we found is about 40% of those patients that otherwise would have said no converted to a surgery.
That's great. All right, well, I think we're out of time. This was great. I learned a lot, and I was lucky because I knew I was bringing you four up here, so I got to read about all your bios. You're all very interesting, all incredibly successful, and your companies are all doing really well, and I partake in all four of your companies, so I think they're doing great, and I think that it's worth everyone else learning a little bit more about what they bring to the market because I think you're part of the growth and part of what's getting us to the next level. So thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Dr.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. Really nice to meet you.